I'm Julia Brock. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of History here at UA, and I'm a public historian, so I coordinate the public history concentration within the department. I have a long-time curatorial collective. We're called the Selvage Collective, and we take on independent curatorial projects. So Swimming Together is one of those, and we invited Hannah Palmer, who is an urban planner, writer based in Atlanta, to come and respond to the history of public swimming in Tuscaloosa. And Hannah's exhibit is part of a larger project called Flow Tuscaloosa that Selvage and I are organizing with Jamie Grimes and other partners in the city and at the University of Alabama.
Hannah Palmer. I'm a writer and urban designer from Atlanta. I was invited by Selvage Collective to consider creating an exhibit or a piece of visual storytelling, visual art about the historic Queen City pool and bathhouse. Once I learned about this facility and visited it, I had a lot of questions about what happened here, why the pool doesn't exist anymore, and those questions were not really answered by the history that I could find online or in the museum, so really fell into the rabbit hole of trying to learn about the history of this place and how it connects to the history of swimming across the nation.
I'm Catherine Edge, and I'm the director of the Mildred Westervelt Warner Transportation Museum. The building was constructed in the early 1940s to be a bathhouse. The whole property had the building. It had a Art Deco style fountain in the back with a wading pool at the base for younger swimmers. For the time, an Olympic-sized pool and bleachers. Its original purpose was to be a community swimming location, and it existed that way until the late 1980s. Then it was vacant for a number of years and then was renovated to be the Transportation Museum. In its history, it's only been the bathhouse and the swimming pool or the Transportation Museum.
I was excited to learn that this old bathhouse had been preserved and converted to a local history museum, because in my neighborhood, the WPA era swimming pool was destroyed in the 80s and there's no trace of it. And I've seen that pattern in my research across the nation of 1940s era swimming pools that have been neglected and defunded and eventually demolished. So it's a pretty cool resource that is here in Tuscaloosa and a great opportunity to tell the story of swimming across the country.
Hannah's research has really opened my eyes to the history of public swimming in Tuscaloosa and public swimming spaces. The larger Flow Tuscaloosa project is interested in examining the ways in which we as Tuscaloosans access water. When we initially started this project, we were thinking drinking water, access to the Black Warrior River and some of its tributaries like Hurricane Creek, which really inspired us. But Hannah has brought a whole new dimension to this in terms of recreational pursuits. How have people in Tuscaloosa accessed water for swimming in the past 100 years or so? Hannah also worked with one of our really talented graduate students in history, Declan Smith, who helped her collect some of the research and the photographs. And so they have taught me, I think, so much. And that's exactly why we love to partner with people, because it just enriches inquiry.
The initial proposal for Swimming Together was just to create a timeline. I wanted to get the story straight, what happened and when and where in Tuscaloosa. Where did people swim at the city's founding, and where were the pools? Were they segregated? When were they desegregated? How were they funded? I kind of wanted to just create a timeline to get the history straight for myself and for folks in Tuscaloosa who haven't read this as a story. And then I thought it would be really interesting to align it with some national trends, because what was happening in Tuscaloosa was certainly happening in other cities across the nation, because the funding sources, whether they're from philanthropists or from the federal government, were the same. Laws like the Clean Water Act were the same. So I wanted to line up a national history of swimming with the local history. At the same time, I knew that in the space of a couple months of research, I wasn't going to get all of the information. So I wanted there to be a way for the community to share their memories. We created a few boards where folks who are visiting the museum can share their stories about when and where and how they learned to swim.
Did you learn to swim in Hurricane Creek? Did you learn to swim at Riverside Pool? Did you learn to swim at the YMCA pool? Did you learn to swim here at the Queen City pool? This is all information that we know happened, but we don't have specifics about it. And that's one of the things that we're hoping to gain through this exhibit, through the community engagement.
Tuscaloosa has some incredible water resources, from the swimming holes on Hurricane Creek to the Black Warrior River, which is swimmable again after many years of industrial use and pollution. They've also managed to hang on to some of their great swimming pools. Many of them have been converted to indoor year-round use, and swimming pools are different today than they were in the 40s when they first were rolled out across the country. So I learned a lot about the city. I dug into the details, particularly on issues around segregation and desegregation of these spaces, but I think the city has a lot to be proud of, from the university to the natural resources, and it seems like a great place to learn to swim, and I look forward to bringing my family out here in May to swim in some of these swimming holes.
It's one of the larger exhibits that we've put up, and it's very special for that reason. We also have an interactive chronicling the history of swimsuits that comes from the UA Fashion Archive, so we're very excited about that. And we've also got swim artifacts on loan from select individuals in the community and also on loan from our partners in other university departments as well.
I hope that people think about their own connections to water, the places that they learn to swim, and how much public space and public investment matters to communities when we're trying to teach a life or death skill like swimming. I also hope that they'll see that what happened here in Tuscaloosa was part of a national pattern, whether we're talking about difficult material around Jim Crow era and segregated spaces, that folks gain a clearer understanding of what was happening across the country and how Tuscaloosa has actually come out pretty well nationally in terms of their public spaces. But there's a lot of work ahead, and we can shape the future of those spaces in town.
We're really counting on the community to come and tell us your story. We tell stories all the time, but we want to hear your story this time.